Well, hello, Year 7. We are carrying on our topic on populations. Want to start off with you pausing this slide and just having a think about what these photos might suggest about our population here in the UK. Pause this when you've got an answer, unpause. 3, 2, 1, pause. Okay, so you might have noticed that quite a lot of the people in the images seem to be fairly old, and it looks like they're very active and still being able to have a good time, like the lady who looks like she's doing a skydive, the older couple that are surfing on the beach, the older guy there that's skateboarding and skiing. So we have many old people in our society, and that's what we're going to be learning about today. It's known as having an ageing population. In other words, there are many people in the UK that are over the age of 65. We do not have what we call a youthful population. Youthful populations are in countries where a lot of people are under the age of 16. And we don't have that in this country. We tend to have an ageing population. So today's lesson, hopefully we will understand what is meant by an ageing and a youthful population. We'll be able to use some examples of countries which have an ageing and youthful population, and we'll be able to understand some of the positives and negatives that youthful and ageing populations bring. So we're looking at two countries today. The UK will be our example of a country with an ageing population, and Uganda in Africa will be our example of a country with a youthful population. So, a few facts to start you off. Britain's population is elderly. That means we have many people over the age of 65 in our country. For example, there are more elderly people in our country than there are young people your age. We call this an ageing population. Countries with lots of young people and few old people are called youthful populations. Often, richer countries, which we call HICs, stands for high income countries, they have ageing populations, and poorer countries, which we call low income countries, have youthful populations. This lesson, you're going to find out why. To start, I want you to pause this slide, copy the definition for a youthful population, that's the middle bullet point, and then make up your own definition for an ageing population. So you might want to use some of the information from the top bullet point, but don't copy it word for word, try and shorten it and simplify it. When you've done this, move on. Pause this slide now. Okay, we're going to look at two case studies, the UK and Uganda. Here are two maps. The first map there is showing you Africa, and the red marks Uganda. The other map we have zoomed right out so that you can see the UK. The UK is in the top circle, and Uganda is where that other circle is on Africa. Your task, I'd like you to write down where Uganda is in relation to the UK. So answer that question there. See if you can describe where in the world Uganda is, and then say whereabouts it is in relation to the UK. Now my hint is, start by naming the continent that Uganda is in. Then think about where it is in terms of compass directions. Is it north of the UK? Is it south? Is it west, east? Is it southeast or southwest? Try and use that kind of language. You might even want to say whether Uganda is inland or is it on the coast by the sea. So try and give a really good description. As many points you make will get you as many marks. Pause this slide now, write up a really good description of where Uganda is and where it is in relation to the UK, and when you've done that, move on. 3, 2, 1, pause. Okay, well here's my answer. If you put down that Uganda is in Africa, give yourself 1 mark. If you put that Uganda is in the middle of Africa, even better, give yourself another mark. If you put that it's inland rather than on the coast, give yourself another mark. If you put that it's south or southeast of the UK, give yourself another mark. You might have done things the other way around. You might have said where the UK is. So you might have said that the UK is in Europe, give yourself a mark. And you might have said that the UK is north or northwest of Uganda, give yourself another mark. See how many marks you got, give yourself a score, and why don't you spend a minute now just making your answer a little bit better. Maybe you could include 1 or 2 of the things that were in my answer. and then move on. Okay, we're going to have a look at something called population pyramids. These two diagrams show you the structure of the population in Uganda, which is the one on the left, and the UK, the one on the right. A population pyramid has ages going up the middle. So if you have a look at the United Kingdoms on the right hand side, you can see right at the bottom the age group is 0 to 4. Then it goes up 5 to 9, 10 to 14, all the way to the top where we've got people living beyond 100. And it's the same for Uganda as well. They've got the ages going up the middle. Then on the UK's population pyramid, on the right hand side are pink bars showing the percentage of females in that age group. On the left hand side is in blue the bars showing the percentage of males in that age group. Similar to Uganda, the females on the right again and the males on the left. This time though, there's no difference in the colours. There's no reason for that, it's just the way it's been drawn by somebody. Then along the bottom, to show you the width of the bars, we've got the population in millions. So if we look again at the United Kingdoms and you look at the 0 to 4-year-olds, for females, that pink bar goes just beyond 1.8, doesn't it? Maybe it's about 1.9. Pause this and see that you can see what I've got. So 0 to 4, the pink bar for the United Kingdom is about 1.9 million. See if you agree. Okay, what is it for the boys then? See if you can get your answer. Pause this and then I'll give you my answer. Okay, you've probably got around about 2. 1.9, 2, maybe even 2.1. That's in millions. What is it for Uganda? Look at Uganda's. Pause this. Tell me what the the population is for females aged 0 to 4 and for males aged 0 to 4. Your answer might have been 3 for the females and just over 3 for the males. So you can see very, very big, a lot of males and females in that age group in Uganda. Okay, your task is to describe how these two pyramids are different shapes. I've given you some words to help you. So you might notice that one of the pyramids has a really wide base and one has a narrowing base. One might be a pyramid shape, one might be more a tower shape. One might have big indents between the bars, whereas the other, smaller indents. One might have a wide top, one might have a narrow top. Do you get the idea? So I would like you to describe how Uganda's pyramid is different to the UK's pyramid. As a bit of extra challenge, people that are trying to hit a band A, maybe you could back up what you're saying with some of the numbers, just like we did just then. Use some of the age groups to support you. Do that task, and then when you're done, move on. Okay, so these are some of the things you might have said. So Uganda has a very wide base and a very narrow top. It's a typical pyramid shape. The sides are convex. That means that they go in. There are steep indents between each of the steps. And it shows a very young population. The widest bars are age groups 0 to 4, 5 to 9, and 10 to 14. Those are the widest bars, so it shows a lot of people in the young age groups. The UK's has a much wider middle, and the top is fairly wide. I mean, it does go narrow, doesn't it? But for anybody above the age of 65, there's still quite a lot of people in that age group, so it's got a wider top. It's more tower shaped. It's starting to narrow at the bottom. And this is reflecting an ageing population because there are still quite a lot of people in the age groups above the age of 65. Now look at the number of people above the age of 65 in Uganda. You should notice that the bars are extremely narrow. So they don't have an ageing population, they have a youthful population. Now let's move on. We're going to look at reasons why the UK has an ageing population. There is a link on Satchel 1 to this YouTube clip. I would like you to watch the YouTube clip and make a brainstorm or a mind map for the UK with all the reasons why we have so many elderly people in the UK. When you've done that, come back to this presentation. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, you might have come up with ideas like there's an increasing life expectancy. Between 1980 and 2006, life expectancy in the UK rose 2.8 years for women and 4 years for men. It's currently just over 81 for women and nearly 77 for men. As people live longer, the number of older people increases. So we've got a lot of old people in our country because people are living a long time. That's the first point. The other thing you might have got down is that there have been baby booms. There were lots of babies born in the 1940s and the 1960s. These people were born after the wartime, when people had finished fighting and they wanted to look to the future, and many people decided to have families as a way of celebrating. Those young children born in the 1940s, 50s and 60s are now starting to retire. They are all hitting age 65 and above. So now we've got loads of people that were born in the 1940s now retiring, making up a lot of old people in our country. And finally, the third reason is that we've got very few young people now because people aren't tending to have as many children. We learnt this in a lesson back at school before Christmas. We learnt about why it was people in countries like ours choose not to have so many children now. So if we haven't got so many children, then obviously the proportion of the older people is getting greater. Let's compare this to Uganda. Again, you need to go back to Satchel 1 and you need to watch the other YouTube clip, which is about Uganda. I want you to do the same thing. I want you to watch the video and do a mind map or a brainstorm of the reasons why Uganda has so many young people. When you've done that, come back and watch this presentation. Okay, you might have got that there is a very high birth and fertility rate. Every year there are 48 babies born for every 1,000 people, and women have an average of 7 children during their years. Imagine that, having 7 children. I've told you before that in our country, people mainly have 1 or 2, but in Uganda, it's not unusual to have 7 or more. The second reason is that there's a low life expectancy. People don't tend to live till they're very, very old. So life expectancy is around about 52. Part of that is because so many children die before their first birthday, which brings the life expectancy down to 52, as it's all worked out on an average. So there are very few old people, which means the proportion of the population is made up with lots of young people. Okay, a couple more tasks to go. Draw a table like the one below and think of as many positives and negatives of ageing and youthful populations. I suggest you do a bit of research on this. Type into Google things like ageing population and advantages and see what comes up. There are many advantages of having old people in our country. You might be able to think of some ideas without doing research. For example, elderly people can often look after the grandchildren. If they look after the grandchildren, it means that the grandchildren's parents can go to work. That's a really good advantage because it saves on childcare. You might think of lots of other things that are great about old people that they bring to our country. Then think about disadvantages, and so on. Then do the same for Uganda with its youthful population. I suggest you pause this slide, spend some time thinking, do some research, and then come back for some answers. Okay, so You might have put down things like, we said that one of the biggest advantages was the fact that old people can look after children for free, which means that the children's parents can go to work. You might have also said that elderly people spend lots of money going shopping or going on holidays, so they can put money into the local economy. You might have said that they can share experiences of their lives and help other people out. You might have said that they do lots of voluntary work in the community, so they work at charity shops for free. Those are some of the advantages that they can bring. Some of the disadvantages, though, is that because they're not earning anymore, they have to take their pension, and the government pays their pension. So the government has to spend some tax money on providing pensions to elderly people. So there's a cost associated with them. Another negative that you might have said for having lots of elderly people is the fact that because they're often not in as good health anymore, it can be putting a strain on the NHS health service because they might need things like hip operations and they might have problems with their eyes or with their hearing. And to fix these problems costs money. So there's another bit of a problem there as well. For Uganda, having lots of young people means that there's lots of energy and lots of youth in the country. Young people often bring great ideas and can work. These are some of the advantages of having lots of young people. They keep the population going as well. However, the disadvantages of having so many young people is that while they are young, they are very dependent on their parents, and that causes having lots of mouths to feed. And that can be a real strain on countries' economies. It can also mean that there are lots of children on the streets if their parents are unable to look after them because they cannot care for them and don't have the money to do so. That's one of the problems with a huge youthful population. It also puts a strain on things like schools because there aren't enough schools for all the young people in that country. Okay, so what I'd like us to think about now is how could we prevent a population becoming too old? How could we prevent a population from being too young? I want you to try and think of some of your solutions for both an ageing population and a youthful population. But remember, try not to be too radical. That means try not to be too extreme. Try not to come up with ideas that are silly, that would never work. For instance, an idea such as murdering people once they get to the age of 65 is a really bad idea. It would never be possible. Anybody suggesting such an idea would never be voted into power. They would never become Prime Minister because people would think that they were too extreme. So try and think of really good solutions, solutions that could work, that the people would like. Spend some time on this. Maybe you could even do some research. Once you've done that, carry on to see some of the ideas that currently exist. Finally, here are some of the solutions. For an ageing population, we could raise the retirement age. Instead of retiring at 65, people could retire a lot older. We could also increase taxes. That would increase the amount of money that the government has, and then they'll be able to pay for our elderly population. We could maybe even sell the homes of the elderly people when they go into retirement care, and then that money that you get from selling their homes can be used to pay for their care. Another solution to a youthful population could be family planning and educating people. Educating people are the benefits of not having as many children and not having as many mouths to feed. Helping people with planning their families, giving them things like contraception for free so that they don't get pregnant. And also, another solution would be to create more jobs. You might have noticed that one of the problems of youthful populations is that because there are so many young people all wanting jobs, that there aren't enough jobs and people are unemployed. So actually, providing industrialising, which means making lots and lots of new jobs for people, could be a really good solution to helping the youthful population. And then people wouldn't need to have so many children to work on things like the farms. That would be another solution. For a challenge to finish off today's lesson, could you explain how one or two of these ideas that are on this slide would help solve some of the problems? When you've done that, your lesson is over. Well done. See you next time.